Stretching right back in, here's our second part of the Galaxy Grudge Match Stretch Royale.
Ducko, you're self-promoting again? Shaking my SMH head.
It's his video, he has the right to self-promote now.
Let's throw our first shrimp on the barbie, you motherfuckers.
Short and sweet, the Fantastic Four is more than just a team, they're a family. Reed has wronged everyone on the team, but he's still family to them. You can't replace a family member is what I'm trying to say. A dog, or pet however, can bring a family closer together. Jake has my vote only for the reasons Max presented, but he'd fill the void needed for their temporary predicament the best in my opinion. Yo! And all that. I'll say that this is pretty good insofar as the dog fitting well into a family. Although, I will say that in terms of being like the dad, certain versions of Stretch Armstrong may fill that role the best out of these four. Possibly? Hey, I still have to stick up for my guy.
Stretch? Best dad? Someone get him a Dad of the Year award. Give him the #1 dad mug. Does he even have kids? Jake actually is a dad, and is a pretty good one at that.
I can believe Stretch Armstrong's a dad. He could get mad dick if he wanted.
What?
That gets a yes from me, Chief.
Before others go on further, I say what I say because of the versions of Stretch that are some scientist stretchy guy, which is closest to Reed. Although I'll admit that a lot of these were cancelled before getting made.
I do think Brandon's point of a dog bringing everyone together is a pretty solid point. Although I will be the first to admit that Jake isn't like a normal do-nothing chase-the-mailman dog. Still, a fair point. Now onto a comment from Garfield.
Number 15. After going through everything, I think my man L. O'Brien would probably be the one they go with here. Yes, he is a pervert. Not take it and leave it. But he's still a pervert that's associated with the Justice League, which gives him much more of a rep than the other three. Plus, most of Place's arcs are... Okay, Place's. Most of Place's arcs are about him trying to better himself as not only a hero, but a person. So even if his perviness does come into play at the start, who's to say it couldn't just be smoothed out as he begins to fit more with the team? And beyond that, L easily has the most experience in terms of superhero action of anyone here. And again, has credibility as a Justice League member. Like I totally didn't say that before. Though, to go over how I think he actually fares against the actual competition here. Number 1. Jake is more versatile, but he's also more aloof and likely to take dire situations seriously. Plus, his stretchiness being magic-based does not make him vulnerable. Their main villain, Dr. Doom, and the other villains who can drag magic, okay. Drain magic, like Ducko said. Ellen is more composed and has superior experience of her own, but what we've seen her do is easily outclassed by what we've seen Plass do. She may get brownie points from Sue as a fellow mother, but they'll only get her so far. Plus, Elle is no slouch in terms of wit and thinking. Number 3. Stretch honestly doesn't have much going for him here anyway. Sorry, Ducko. The biggest hindrance I can think of here would be that Elle is obviously not as smart as Reed, showing nothing close to any of the genius level feats he's seen. However, that applies to everyone else here. So even with that in mind, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say Plastic Man is the most likely choice.
I have to argue something here, in that Jake's powers don't actually come from magic. He was under the belief that he rolled around in magic mud or whatever, but soon learned that his father was an alien of stretching abilities, and he inherited that. Yes, his stretching has been removed by the Magic Man before, but that just means the Magic Man can take care of inherent abilities, which means he could probably take care of everyone's powers here. Dr. Doom may be able to remove Jake's abilities, but if he can, he could do the same to everyone else here.
It was a bit inconsistent to begin with, but to be fair about it, Jake's powers were still taken away through magical means. And he's the one who has most immediately had this happen to him, which makes me lean towards his being the most susceptible to it.
I'd still argue that this just means everyone here is at risk of getting their powers removed via magic, not just Jake. As for your argument for Plastic Man, I think you underestimate how big a problem his perverted nature really is.
Fair enough for all four of them, but for the main points, first impressions will really matter in a short span of time. and Plastic Man is the only one here who will make a particularly bad one. There's no getting around how much space is being violated by sneaking around as a woman's dress.
I agree with you saying that Sue and Helen both being mothers will only get Helen so far, but it's definitely not going to be actively damaging to her chances, unlike Plastic Man's overly perverted nature. Would you rather have someone you relate to on your team, or someone who's going to sexually harass you constantly?
But he's quirky though! In all seriousness, like I said at the start of my argument, Plastic Man being the pervert will be a big issue here. But I do believe Reed Richards will return before this becomes a real problem. And Plastic Man still has experience working for the Justice League. Plus that story about reforming. Yes, I forgot to mention that. Very good.
I know it's likely for Reed to find his way back, but if he doesn't, Plastic Man is really screwed here. Also, I think if it really is a short-term situation, they still won't go with Plastic Man. They could actually go with someone likable for a short period of time until Fantastic returns.
What else am I supposed to do? We all know Ducko would just bullshit a reason for Reed coming back anyway.
On to the next comment.
I'd say... I'm not doing a voice. I'd say Jake would make a good replacement, as he is very wise and friendly, which would lead to the Fantastic Free being more friendly, and accept him as the noble member of the Fantastic Free/4. Also, besides Plastic Man, Jake is the most experienced fighter out of the group. Jake is also pretty good at adapting to situations as well, which would benefit the team. Helen being a mom like Susan, Invisible Woman, isn't really helping her case. This is a scenario about being a hero for the team, not about Mother's Guidebook for kids, lol. Also, Helen, while the most serious, she tends to pressure herself as threats like Dr. Doom would easily trick her. I doubt Doom would take Jake's powers due to him being ignorant and very egotistical, not seeing Jake as a threat. This has happened consistently, of Doom's ego screwing him over for like 1,000 issues. In the end, I think Jake is more qualified due to his wisdom, fighting skill, teamwork, and adaptability. Jake FGW!
Once again, my boy Stretch ain't getting the respect, or even any mention whatsoever, so unfortunately, I will not have much to say here initially that I haven't kind of said before.
Dr. Doom would easily trick her. Yeah, like Big Victor isn't league smarter than every single character in this debate. I don't see how that's a handicap for Helen specifically. Next up is a comment from a fellow tea-drinking, crumpet-munching stereotype, Ribbit Theatre.
Okay, no impression here either, it'll be very offensive. All four sides here have fairly reasonable points to be made for them, and I don't want to repeat what's already been said, as that's pretty unnecessary. But there's an argument that none of you have mentioned, and I'm not happy, Bob. Not happy. I want to talk about the fact that each of these characters have had their overall physicality altered, and who will adapt the best to the specific change, which I believe to be Jake. While not specified, I think it's safe to say they've all been given the physicality of Mr. Fantastic, in which case, they could potentially be dealing with a power level of similar proportions of, say, the Thing, who's around planet level. This means Jake is going to be within a fairly similar power range, and should have little trouble adjusting. To put this into perspective in a more relatable sense, Plastic Man is basically going to go from having average human strength to being unable to lift a toothpick. Stretch is going to be going from average human strength to destroying everything he touches, and Elastigirl has this issue, but even worse due to her lack of meteor feats. It is for these reasons that I believe Plastic Man, Elastigirl, and Stretch are going to need way more time to adapt, which gets rid of their main advantage over Jake, experience as stereotypical superheroes, leaving them as clumsy, sloppy, and dangerous in the case of Stretch and Helen. Also, all the Fantastic Four members are friends. Helen and Stretch, from what I can tell, just lack the charisma and likability of Jake. I don't mean to say they're unlikable, that statement by the way. Plastic Man's the only one here I don't really like. Speaking of, unlike Stretch and Helen, he's just not going to be an option if you ask me. Would you rather have a person on your team who's limited, or a member who's got the skills, but will also likely assault your leader? I assume Invisible Woman will be the leader now. Jake's the only one here who will want to become friends, and will be an appealing friend choice. The Sang and Johnny aren't exactly persnickety with who they choose to become friends with, but would he really want his good friend to be uncomfortable? And heck, why would the very person who's being perved on want him? It is for these reasons, coupled with the ones Max stated, that I believe Jake would be the best choice as a temporary fourth member. Also, his powers aren't magic, just needed to point that out. I think Ribbit has a fair point here. Their stats being suddenly that of Mr. Fantastic may actually be a factor that we didn't consider before. Jake is the closest to being on Fantastic's level, whereas Plastic Man will suddenly be much weaker, and the other two would suddenly have great strengths that would take a while to get used to, trying to avoid breaking stuff by not knowing their own strengths.
I'll admit that I didn't really think of this aspect of the match being a determining factor, which just goes to further show I don't really think my scenario's through enough. Uh-oh. I was trying to put them on an even footing, but if some of them are going to be vomiting like Dr. Manhattan just teleported them, then that's really going to throw a wrench in things. Although I will now finally bring up Stretch Armstrong's meteor feat. This has been a joke behind the scenes, but it wasn't really relevant until now, given the stat difference being gotten rid of. That said, it puts him in the running for hovering around possibly a similar level to Reed.
Well, that meteor feat is probably going to mean that Stretch will at least feel more comfy than Elastigirl.
Plastic Man is a DC Herald, baby, and because of this he scales to the limitless power of the likes of Superman. For his stats to drop so drastically, it's going to be like going from normal human strength to not even being able to get out of bed in the morning because you don't have the strength to lift your own arm.
The only Crocs I can handle is some slip-on shoes. Plastic Man is getting it worse here than a baby getting eaten by a dingo. Assuming I suddenly have a child, but... We still have to acknowledge that he's probably one of the ones here who's been most used to dimensional shenanigans and transformations being inflicted upon him, given his experiences in the DC universe.
My guy became a fat guy once, so he has experience of being human in strength in a way, being weaker than he should.
That said, let's move on to Combo Breaker's comment. Get it? Killer Instinct? Combo Breaker? Haha. Let's get this done before I turn mad. Max.
Well, this is quite the interesting debate. Personally, I have to side with Jake the dog on this one. When it comes to raw versatility, Jake actually does have the advantage, as he can change his body into weapons, keys, armor for others, and has so much more. On top of that, he has shown he can kind of warp reality to a minor degree. And saying as though Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman's kid was a reality warper, I can't remember his name, they could help Jake learn to use this as a helpful tool in battle. Another important ability that I believe gives Jake the edge here is his amazing magical powers. In one episode, him and Finn become wizards and damn near mastered almost every spell in a short period of time. So in the Marvel Universe, he could potentially learn the insane types of spells Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom use at a much faster rate than anyone else on the team, giving him even more versatility. Now don't get me wrong, the other three are versatile, but nowhere near the same level as Jake, who can do far more than Stretch. Elastigirl may be incredibly smart and skilled when it comes to working with a similar super team, but Jake has fought a larger variety of enemies, ranging from monsters to wizards, has helped Finn through dangerous battles, and most importantly, came up with the idea to stretch through a maze so him and Finn wouldn't get lost. Plastic Man is stretchy, but he is also an annoying pervert who is weak to fire, which means he wouldn't play well with the Human Torch. He would be a creep towards Invisible Woman, and he would annoy the Thing, ultimately making him a poor choice for the team. As for Stretch Armstrong, I got nothing, but most of Ducko's argument wouldn't help him overtake Jake as the best choice. Maybe if Ducko stopped self-promoting and made an argument, Stretch could have won. Oh my god. Whew.
Stop talking about me self-promoting. I had an argument in this, and if anyone should be accused of self-promoting for too long instead of arguing, it's actually Whoand.
Bugger off, you feathery cunt! My Hero Academia brace deserves more views.
My point exactly.
I agree with the sentiment that Susan could help Jake hone his reality warping abilities, since her baby apparently did have those powers. Though of course, reality warping isn't my main point, it's just a side thing that helps a lot here.
Hello there, darlings. It's Edna, doing the voice for this comment. You'll see why in a couple of minutes. Yes. At first, it seemed obvious, but geez, this is a doozy. At least what I think is viable is short and ain't as big worded as before, darling. Big words hurt me as well, darling. Yes. First, arm stretches out. He's got the least amount of substantial information on him, meaning it's more so on guessing his intellect and capabilities of defeating bad guys. Sure, he's got... Sure. Fucking Edna isn't running in the 90s now, god. Sure, he's got the least flaws with the Fantastic Four would stick on them all. but his lacking status is more of a guessing game, which is heavily dangerous, darling. Haha, yes. Next up, surprisingly enough, it's a three-way tie for this case. Edna, that's me, darling, has should be Mrs. Incredible, but nope. It's me, Edna. I'm better than that scant Mrs. Incredible. Myself, Edna, his intellect and friendliness, Jake has a calming demeanor and the best stretching ability, being able to go diagonal, and Plastic Man, this experience and unpredictability. However, Jake is next to fall short here, darling. Simply put, his powers can be taken away, and he lacks the energy and intellect to truly pull it off. Some powers hurt his friends and teammates. He's able to get prone to anger and lash out, and he really likes the team experience to keep up with Mrs. Incredible. Oh, don't you mean me, darling? And Mr. Plastic. He's by far the most calming and natural to work with. But that also makes him a liability in his laziness, which Mr. Fantastic isn't. Oh, I wasn't, darling. See what I did there. However, the story ends Fantastic's fate as. Finally, Edna. Why do I go down, darling? Okay, it may shock you to see that I went with Plastic. Why did you, darling? Here's the thing. His perverted nature and unpredictability are hindrance, but aren't that much, as Edna's lack in dealing with superpower having baddies. Working on the team, because she had to keep her heroism a secret for so long. And ineptitude to fall for simple ploys. She's by far the smartest and most level-headed. Thank you, darling. But her gullible status and inexperience will be her downfall. That's why I believe Plastic Man should be the winner. Albeit in a very close three-way tie, darling. Most of the points brought up here are the same as my argument, so no need to dig 6 feet down under. Plus that point with Plastic Man's unpredictability could work, but it's too much of an outlier to generally consider it as an actual positive for him.
Stretch gets no respect once again. If you really want just one to stick with, you could have gone with the Flex Fighters version, who does have it all fairly concrete. I know I really muddled it, but for some reason, I like doing that.
You must really like Edna. Yes, Edna, the girl who made the costumes. You messed up the names. Did you watch Biff Weed's section of the video even?
What are you talking about, darling? I am obviously Elastigirl, the best superhero in business. It's not best to insult the audience as they are darlings. Yes, I'm right, darling. Yes.
Yeah, and the Mad Max pun of yours earlier killed the dinosaurs.
Nuggets!
I will have to go with Elastic Girl with this one, as Plastic Man is annoying and won't be a good candidate, and also Mr. Fantastic is the brain of the team and a team leader, while none of them aren't smart. Elastic Girl is the smartest out of the other 3 candidates, and she is no stranger to being a leader, and also you forget her suit make her fireproof and bulletproof, so this might be a stretch, but Elastic Girl will be the perfect candidate. This is the one comment I got siding with me. He doesn't really put any arguments forth that I didn't bring up myself in part 1. Except for, Helen is fireproof and bulletproof. Like you could kill any of the other candidates with a fucking gun.
It's great that you support the character whose name you aren't even getting right. Okay, I'm sorry. But you also don't really acknowledge the Meteor Feet King, Stretch Armstrong, once again. Not to mention one of her other biggest competitors in this, Jake the Dog.
Guys, I do believe I've been debunked here. Jake is naked and has no bulletproof or fireproof armor. But no, this isn't very useful. They're probably all getting Fantastic Four uniforms once they're on the team anyways.
Alright, you grots, let's finally get this finished. 4-man enter, 1 man leaves.
Or woman. Or dog. Anyways, let's go. I am being Yahoo serious about this after all.
Man, Whoand has been really Australian in this episode.
North the animals get you first, mate.
Before Ducko forces me to make more stereotypical remarks, let's just get to the winner.
It looks as if everyone got 1 vote. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Well, it's eat a Vegemite sandwich and get this over with. Who do we say actually wins? God damn it, Ducko.
Well, even if it's not because of him not siding with me, I do still forfeit, and I've ended up siding with Jake in the end.
At the end of the day, I also have to side with my fellow rubber, yellow talking animal, Jake the dog.
Ducko doesn't have a smug Australian way to say this for me, so yeah, we all agree on Jake the dog winning here. At least I was right with my case falling flat on its face, so take that, bitches.
This is good news for me. But why did you guys come to this conclusion?
Well, on my part, I will have to say Stretch unfortunately doesn't really have anything anyone else here doesn't have. That does include some of their flaws, but it also means he's too much of a blank slate. So although I stan a Meteor Feet king, even I will eventually relent to the majority opinion that he matters the least here, unfortunately.
As for Elastigirl, I do still think she has a good mindset for the team, but her versatility is incredibly limited compared to Jake and even Plastic Man. Both of them are far more versatile than her, and she's the only one of the four who can't turn giant. I'd probably say Plastic Man has the advantage over Jake in terms of versatility, since he can change the colour of parts of his body to better blend in, and he can also change his voice. But his pervy nature will hold him back a lot, and it's the main reason I didn't end up siding with him. Jake might not be quite as versatile, but he's still got way more up his sleeves than Elastigirl or Meteor Boy. And unlike Plastic Man, Jake doesn't have any major downsides to his personality that will hold him back from winning this one.
As for Plastic Man, he fucking sucks. The end. Okay, memes aside, if you couldn't already tell, I was pretty unsure about him from the start of my argument, because while you'll try to ignore it, this point will just come back like a boomerang to the arse. Don't ask why, just it does. He did indeed hide himself in the woman's shower, and became a woman's dress, and that kind of sexual deviancy isn't something you can get past. He should be in jail. Like, fucking literally, he should be. No stretching around it, Jake and Elastigirl are the best people here. But since Jake is more versatile than her, he should be the more reasonable choice here. Plastic Man is just, indeed. Ew. Fucking disgusting.
Well, there we go, yeah. I basically agree with everything here, though I have to give props to our underdog Ducko here, who tried his damn best to argue for poor Stretch Armstrong. You were a real trooper out there, my feathered friend.
Oh, sidelining me all of a sudden?
I mean, to be fair, you had it bad as well, just Ducko had it way worse.
No, fine. Man, I ain't sticking with Patrick anymore.
Ignoring that pun. Well, thank you, Max, and everyone else as well. But now, we will see how this ends up. Hopefully well for all parties involved. We close up on the remaining members of the Fantastic Four and the four stretchy heroes, fighting Dr. Doom in his castle in Latveria. Jake the dog notices something is up with the machine in the back that Doom seems to have been guarding. Jake sneaks around, then stretches himself around to get right into the wiring of the machine and starts messing with it from the inside, while Doom is distracted fighting the others. Suddenly, the machine starts sparking with electricity. Then, a large explosion rocks the room. Jake is spat out, luckily relatively unharmed. But another elastic figure steps out. Richards! I thought I had gotten rid of you! Dr. Doom looks as shocked as one could be under a metal mask, while Reed rubbed his head. So that's why he was lost, Jake said. With Reed now here, that gave the team the extra edge to defeat Dr. Doom in this fight. Only for it to be revealed to be a Doombot. Typical. But at the end of the day, Jake was thanked for helping them bring back Reed, and all of the stretchy heroes were thanked for their help in general. Each of the four other parties were helped to get back to their normal selves and to go back to their normal home dimensions. Meanwhile, back in Latveria, the real Doom was sitting in a shadowed room, looking into other dimensions after rebuilding his machine. It seemed a coalition of other villains was building up across them. Dr. Doom ultimately wanted control for himself, but this all seemed potentially useful to him.
See? Called it! I can duck on these bullshit endings. What? You guys don't do after credits gags? Disgusting. Not gips. Feathering cunt, feathering cunt. Feathering cunt, feathering cunt. Feathering cunt. Feathering cunt. Sorry, Ducko. Feathering cunt.
Ducko, stop promoting, you fucking definitely cunt. Anyways, I'm going. Bye.